Hi gorgeous lights, welcome to another video. Do you know, it's been really interesting because since I put up about complex soul agreements and soul agreements full stop, with yourself as well, I've had so many people and so many questions and so many conversations. So I thought it would probably be a good idea if I actually started to put up a little bit more information as well, because it's kind of, with soul agreements, it's kind of like, where do you start? And so I was talking to Owen this morning, my guide, and I said to him, oh my gosh, I don't know where to start with this. And he goes, well, why don't you start at the beginning as well? So, you know, basically, there's a whole lot of illuminations and where we plan what we need to experience in this lifetime, the parties that we need to experience it with, whether it's our parents, whether it's siblings, whether it's work relationships, whether it's interpersonal relationships, intimate relationships, whatever. A lot of planning goes into place. Now, people get really confused by this because they go to me, but that takes time to do that. Well, yeah, in human terms, because human time is a human construct, yeah, it does take time to actually do these things. But on the other side, there is no time. So there is plenty of room or scope to be able to plan the experiences that you're having at a soul level. Now, don't forget as well is that it's an aspect of the soul that is in the meat suit this time around. An aspect. The soul is actually really big, from my understanding. And we are almost like, they talk to me a lot about it in this way. So say if the soul was a really massively, beautifully big crystal, and you can just see a facet of it, just a facet, then it can be experiential that a facet of your soul incarnates to have an experience from this facet's perspective, but may not incarnate again or have a different experience. So there is room, those other facets can be actually planning their soul journey in another dimension or another space, another time. It's really complex is a point that I'm wanting to make. Now, so I was saying to Toad, my guide, this morning, how do I kind of make it clearer for people if we are, you know, like just people's on the beach in terms of the experience here, and the tide is just washing us and putting us into different environments and rubbing us and polishing us into who we need to be. What would be the first place to start to try and discover, if you haven't worked out what your wound is, or even know what soul agreement that you have with your own self, to work out what you're actually here to learn? And then we started talking about natal charts and astrology and all the layers, because, you know, your name has a frequency. So what you've not been named means that you have experiences because of that. The date that you were born, you have experiences that because of that number and that frequency that comes with it. So frequency with a name, frequency with the date that you're born, the year that you're born, the time that you're born, the month that you're born, layer. I'm like, wow, this is really huge. And I said, well, so if someone's looking for an indicator and they might say that their name is Louise, for instance, and numerology wise that breaks down to a life of challenges and monumental learning about yourself from that perspective, because it's a very intense name, and lots of learning comes with that name, let alone what, you know, if you were born on the 5th, then you get transformational learning, because the number 5 is about transformation. Then you can see how it starts to layer up. And I'm like, I really want to help people to understand that no one is a coincidence, nothing's a coincidence. These are all, you've divinely orchestrated your understanding to do with this as well. So then we started talking about natal charts, what time you were born, and to a degree it doesn't matter if you don't know what time you're born, because usually people know when their birthday is and the year that they're born. So you can go to a natal chart. Now, the really big indicator on your natal chart, and trust me, there is, I'm not going to recommend one, there's thousands of them, astrological sites where you can enter your own details and have a look at your natal chart. But there is a shortcut to it. What you could do, because Chiron, planetary alignment, which is in most people's natal charts, is actually the wounded warrior planet. And what it actually does, or sorry, I want to change it, astrological, you know, planet or whatever it is. Astrological alignment is actually the wounded warrior, which actually gives you a huge amount of understanding about what your part of your soul contract is for you to experience in your soul contract with yourself, to learn about yourself, to heal in yourself, and to understand that it influences you at an incredibly non-conscious or subconscious level that drives a lot of your learning that actually happens. So we know that on the earth plane that there is the subconscious, non-conscious, the superconscious, all those sorts of things, everything that we call it, that is what is driving our conscious understanding. So that's actually going on in the background as well. So when you look at, if you go to the computer and you Googled in, what is my placement in Chiron, there's websites that come up where you can actually find out exactly what that is, and then you can go to basically and have a look. There is websites that also take you to look at what it would mean if you've got Chiron in Pisces, or you've got Chiron in Sagittarius, or whatever, or it's in the 10th house or whatever. There's shortcut places that you can find to actually do that as well. And I can't quite remember them, but I've been on them, and as soon as you enter it, Google will take you exactly where you need to go. So that is a space that you can actually look at to learn about what might be some of your soul level learning. Pardon me, just to give you an aha moment. Just to give you an aha moment so you can actually look at what you may be here to learn about yourself. And then so I kept talking to them, and I was like, I know that one of my soul agreements, and don't get me wrong, and there's 3 of mine that feature dominantly because it's part of my soul pathway and the experiences that I've chosen to actually have in a soul agreement with myself. And you've heard me talk about abandonment, rejection, and betrayal. So then I just started talking to the guides, and I was like, what about all the rest of them? And they said, well, there is a soul agreement about patience. There's a soul agreement about tolerance. There's a soul agreement about indifference. There's a soul agreement about vanity. There's a soul agreement about loneliness, expectation, loss, grief, humility, ego, arrogance, divinity, sacredness, joy, and overlying all of them is love. So if I have abandonment, rejection, and betrayal in my threads, 100% I have to have love. Why? Because the agreement with self is to overcome those perceptual wounds, if you like, for my soul level agreement with myself, to bring it back to self-love. So everything that we're learning down here is bringing back to, can you forgive somebody? Can you have gratitude? Can you have love and empathy and compassion and understanding, all the big ones, for somebody else's experience, or the experience that they actually brought to you? So this is massive, massive, massive. It just goes, I keep hearing that it is the song that never ends. Yep, it's huge. And you don't need to, yeah, exactly, I agree. You can do a lot of analysis paralysis, Spirit is just saying, about going, is it this, and getting all really kind of upset about it. The bottom line is it'll be obvious. Once you start looking for it, once you have your aha moments, then you can understand it, and you can start to actually deal with this aspect that is actually causing you to wonder if the universe is picking on you, because that's what people will say to me when they come to me. They go, but the universe is picking on me. No, the universe is not picking on you. The universe is illuminating for you, in your best interest, the wound or the learning or the experiential learning that you actually came to have with yourself through the players that are around you, that are people that are around you, and the roles that people play. And I end up saying to people, they're going, that person really let me down. Yep, but that person was playing a role. Now, at a soul level, and I can only base this on my own understanding and the experiences that I've had with the difficult people in my life, and the absolute sheer amazing 5D, if you like, or off-world beauty of the souls that have actually been helping me with the difficulty here on the earth plane, is that they're absolutely beautiful. And so I know in my soul group, for the people that have actually taken some of the most difficult roles in my life by my own perception, have actually been truly, truly, truly beautiful in their colours and their aura, and absolutely beautiful at a soul level. Doesn't mean I like them at a human level, or but I'm grateful for them. Because if I hadn't had that learning and understanding, now it takes years to turn it around to gratitude. Please don't understand. I've had my years of feeling very, very cross at people, neglected by people, abandoned, rejected, betrayed by people. I've had all of that, and I've had to do the processes. And people generally, we don't like doing our own processes. We'd rather run a mile from that. And I know for years I did run a mile from it. So one of the wounds that I also have had to deal with in my life, because it's tied up with abandonment, rejection and betrayal, is the loss of my dad. And everybody has an experience to do with grief, but also the blame that I would put on myself, that it was, I should have done this, I could have done this, I shouldn't have done that everybody does these stages through grief, but at really, really deep levels, depending on your personality type, depending on your soul pathway learning, the soul agreement with them, everything that you're supposed to learn from can really, really scar you at your core if you don't apply gratitude. As I said, it takes a long time to actually get to that as well. But no one in your life is a coincidence. There's a movie called The 7 People That You Meet on the Way to Heaven, and it was a made-for-TV movie, but it was just an illumination. And, and one of the scenarios was a kid that ran across the road in front of a car. The car stopped, didn't hit him, but, picked him up and said, don't go down the road. Well, that person would have been pivotal in a soul contract or a soul agreement to take that role with that person, to change a series of events. So for instance, there's a movie Sliding Doors, and it's, basically if she took that one or that one, it turned out a different way. The whole of your life path is actually like that. So you can have a random soul agreement. I came across a random soul agreement probably a couple of years ago when I was coming back from Nelson, in the middle of the night with my youngest son, and we came across this guy walking on the side of the road. I think it was something like midnight or 11:45 at night, and basically I drove past him, and then I had a soul pull, just such a big pull to go back and get him. So I went back and stopped and said, "Hey, what are you doing? Like, it's midnight, you're walking on the side of the road." And he said, "I ran out of petrol back there." And I remembered we had gone past the car. And I said, "Okay, I'll drive you to Emily, and we will get petrol, and then I'll drive you back again." And I said to, he said, "Well, yeah, that's really amazing." And I said, "No, you're not going to get petrol anywhere tonight." So at the end of the day, yeah, that's the least that I could actually do. So we got talking on the journey to the petrol station, and he was telling me how he just was coming back from Nelson too, but he had taken a friend up there that had actually been beaten up. And he had transported all her stuff up there and was driving back. So he was doing a round trip back to Dunedin. And he said, "I put it out to the universe," non-coincidentally he said it that way, "put it out to the universe that I hoped that some good person would help me to get back home after I had done a good deed." So I heard, driving past him, the soul pull, because I could have just kept going. I could have just gone, "No, I'm not picking up some random weirdo on the side of the road, bless him." But the point is, the pull from my soul to say, "This is important," stop. So we had a really big chat, and he was a really great guy, and it was really nice to be able to say, "Hey, thank you for paying it forward and doing such an amazing thing for your friend, and thank you for letting us do something for you." So these are the types of like little random soul agreements that are non-coincidental, but that can just flavour your life. Equal random soul agreement can be the person that rips you off, sorry, because you learn from it and you go from it. And the universe is an equation. The soul agreement's an equation. If I'm going to be a bully, then I have an agreement with somebody else to be bullied. And this is where we human beings get really caught up in karma. And we can say, actually, well, I'll just wait and I'll wait for karma to pay that out. Well, yes, but you would have factored in somewhere that for that experience, you'll get that experience because it's an equation. It seriously is an equation. So there is random soul agreements that happen just the way that I actually explained it. There is learning soul agreements. So, you know, why did I come together and be married to that person for this period of time and have children with this person, then all of a sudden explodes and that's not my person anymore? Well, your learning soul agreement was what you were supposed to accomplish, learn and grow with that person, and 9 times out of 10 of people say it was a really, really painful experience. Well, and did you grow from it? Because most of the time we forget in our human mind, which is really, really focused on negativity, not joy, by the way, that we do a lot of catalyst learning because we learn the best that way, just because this is our negative part of our brain that looks at things as fight or flight as well. We really sit back and go, I remember how absolutely amazing that experience is. We're the first ones to go, oh my God, that experience was really, really terrible. So, you know, there's learning soul agreements. There is soulmate agreements, and we love hanging on to banners down here and labels on the earth plane, but basically a soulmate agreement is part of a learning agreement. It's an experience that you've actually decided to have that intrinsically brings you really, really close. Don't forget, we're all supposed to be bringing it back to love, but it is an experience that you will actually have with that person. Now that can fit into like the soul agreement personally for me and most of my family members with my dad, was to experience loss. So loss and love. It's not until you lose someone do you understand how much and how important love was. So having that experience of loss and having a family member that, or a friendship or what a partner or whatever, that takes that really, really pivotal role for you. They took it for you out of love so that you can learn and grow and value, hopefully, the rest of the people that are actually in your life, which is, everyone goes, oh, that's such hard learning. Oh, yes, it is. And you have my 100% my empathy. And it's the reason why I do this work. But it's also, you would have learned so much about love in one crippling blow, and it's heart-wrenching that that's what we're actually here to learn. So soulmates agreements can be equally complex as well. They can be the person in a soulmate agreement that's destined to hurt you the most because you love them the most. All of those sorts of things. You know, I have a soul level agreement with my twin. I've talked about that, and the role that he's supposed to play, that plays in with abandonment, rejection and betrayal. And at the same time that he does that to me, I have done it to him. So it's basic experiential learning. There is twin experience agreements that you have, or twin flame people can call it, where there's an aspect of yourself that is so similar. You might have a similar upbringing, you might have had similar experiences, you might have a similar wound of betrayal, abandonment, rejection, and your wound pulls you together. And the challenge within that is to use each other in a nice way to illuminate where the wounds are, and hopefully you can bring it back to love. Now that's a really, 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 really challenging when it's a wound-to-wound connect, because you have the biggest challenge to recognise your own wound, not blame the other person for it, and then go on to the next relationship and the next relationship, because the way that it works with the soul agreement with self, until you cannot avoid what you came in to learn, you cannot avoid your wound or what you actually is highlighted within the understanding of your learning of your wound, you will be fully present in the experience until you work it out what the illumination is, and you can love yourself, because that's the key to it, is recognising, forgiving yourself and understanding, applying compassion and empathy towards self-love, that you can actually go and recognise it, and the whole thing collapses. Now, I've been in this process, probably for about the last 5 years. It wasn't, don't get me wrong, when I say that, this is my individualised process. Why? Because I chose to come here to have experiences that were really, really full on, so that I could help other people with them. So I signed up for this, and I'm perfectly okay that I'm actually signed up for it. But it's been the biggest investigative process over the last 5 years to actually work out where I'm working against myself and how I'm working against myself, and how it's impacting in the subconscious and in the programmed wounding, childhood wounding, karmic wounding, and while I'm calling it all into the wound category, the amazing benefits of actually healing that is falling in love with yourself and being very, very okay with who you actually are. So there is a benefit to it, because people, when they don't want to deal with their stuff, they will run away. Emotionally unavailable people, there's a planet full of them. Why? Because, and it's why we have a big problem with depression on the planet as well, because nowhere are we really taught to identify or self-nurture what our own needs are. These investigative processes to do with soul agreements, the shadow aspects of yourself, the moon aspects. Now, the moon quite often in your natal chart, whatever sign that it takes you towards, it is your sun, moon, or rising. That can actually give key indicators about other things that you're actually here to experience as well. So, you know, I said to upstairs before, I said to Spirit, well, crikey, the types that got a soul agreement myself, and surely, which I haven't put in there, but it's probably one of them, is stubbornness, where we stubbornly refuse, and they go, oh no, that's ego, that's just ego, that's covered by ego. So I'm like, good grief, there's a huge amount of learning, and you will be doing these sorts of learning till the day you die. Like someone said to me, they said, it'll be really good if I get past all of this. I said, well, if you get past all of this, which I would, there's no rushing a process here, guys. If you get past this, what you do is you come into emotional equilibrium, which just means that you transcend through the stuff that's going on in your life without doing this emotional roller coaster that teaches you so much. Depths and, you know, the heights of joy and the depths of despair, you actually come into a little bit more equilibrium. So stuff still happens because it's earth plane. There's always stuff happening, let's face it, there's always a drama somewhere. But you navigate through it with more compassion, empathy, equilibrium as well. So is there a benefit to it? 100% there's a benefit to it. But hey, you never signed up for boring. So of course you're going to do some interesting stuff while you're down there. There's no point incarnating. So the interesting stuff is really an event or whatever, is interesting stuff is what you do in yourself, how you turn up on a daily basis and how you work with yourself, forgive yourself, have gratitude for yourself. It's all experiential learning. So really, really important for you to understand that as well. So I just wanted to add some extra into this, to the complexity, because it's not till I start actually looking at it and going, oh my gosh, how do I teach people about the complexity, that there's some starting points. So that's what this video is about, really, is to actually show you that there are some starting points. You can start with your natal chart, you can find out where Chiron is, the wounded warrior, and then I'll give you a half-point indication of at least one starting point if you want to look at it for yourself as well. So take care of you, gorgeous lights, and remember, we are all in this together. So we also need to be cutting slack for each other for this process of growth, because on the earth plane right at the moment, we're kind of getting pushed and pulled, because we're heading into the age of Aquarius, to look at our stuff. There's no getting past it. You're best to start looking at your stuff. So do you get into looking at your stuff, the freer you'll become to live, breathe, have your beautiful life. Take care of you.